news tonight, Jordan condemns the slaying by Daesh terrorists of a priest in a French church, an attack and hostage-taking that left another person injured before the two assailants were shot dead by police. The UN Special Envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, tells reporters after a trilateral meeting in Geneva, the aim is to proceed with the third round of inter-Syrian talks towards the end of August. And Hillary Clinton is set to become the first woman presidential nominee on the second day of the Democratic National Convention tonight, which includes a speech by her husband, former President Bill Clinton. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. His Majesty the King received a telephone call from the recently appointed British Prime Minister Theresa May, in which they spoke of the friendly and historic ties that bond the two kingdoms. His Majesty and May also reviewed peace efforts and steps to stabilize the region. The British Prime Minister commended Jordan's services to the Syrian refugees, as well as efforts to fight terrorism and extremism. Interior Minister Salam Hamad met with a U.S. delegation representing the National Democratic Institute, currently on a visit to the kingdom, to take a first-hand look at preparations for the upcoming parliamentary elections. Hamad told the delegation the Independent Election Commission is the body authorized to manage the elections slated for September 20, whereas the government's role is to provide needed logistical and security support. He briefed them on government measures that will be in place in the run-up for the elections, when public security and gendarmerie personnel will be deployed to maintain the security during the process. The delegation voiced appreciation of various public institutions' efforts to ensure transparency of the electoral process. Another attack in France, also claimed by Daesh terrorist group. Two assailants calling themselves Daesh soldiers slit the throat of an elderly priest and took several worshippers hostage in a French church before police shot them dead. One of the hostages was seriously wounded. The attack took place during morning mass at the Saint-Étienne parish church, south of Rouen in Normandy. On behalf of the Jordanian government, Minister of State for Media Affairs Mohammed Al-Momani condemned the attack on the French church, saying such despicable act reflect the criminal ideology of Daesh as they continue to provoke sedition and spread chaos everywhere in the world. Killing and terrorizing innocent people is a crime against humanity and is forbidden in our religion and other religions, he said, reiterating the need for concerted international efforts against terrorism. Here's more.
The attackers struck during the morning mass at the Saint-Étienne-du-Rouvray parish church south of Rouen in Normandy. Police say the two men took 5 people hostage, including the priest, 84-year-old Father Jacques Hamel. Hamel was later found dead, his throat cut. Interior Ministry spokesman Pierre-Henri Brandet says police eventually lured the hostage takers out.
The two assailants came out and they were neutralized, killed by the police services.
Police are investigating the identity and motives of the two assailants, though French President Francois Hollande blames Islamic State.
We are faced with a group, Daesh, which has declared war against us. We must lead this war by all means, while respecting the rule of law, which makes us a democracy.
After multiple extremist attacks over the past 2 years, it's a democracy that's being tested as never before.
The Vatican condemned what it described as the barbarous killing of the priest in a French church, saying Pope Francis was horrified by the news. Vatican spokesman Father Federico Lombardi said in a statement that this trail of violence and hate shocks and worries the Church. It is an offense to a holy site, he said, and is a terrible thing to religious sentiment. The border guard managed to prevent a vehicle from crossing a Jordanian checkpoint into a neighboring country. An official army source said the border guards aborted an attempt applying the rule of engagement and succeeding to control the vehicle and arrest the driver. Upon searching the vehicle, the border guards found illegal items and referred both the driver and the material in his possession to the competent authorities. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said he hoped to announce early next month details of a U.S. plan for closer military cooperation and intelligence sharing with Russia on Syria. Kerry was speaking after talks with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on the sidelines of a meeting of Southeast Asian nations in Laos. He said there has been progress in recent years on moving forward with the plan under which Washington and Moscow would share intelligence to coordinate airstrikes against Nusra Front and prohibit the Syrian Air Force from attacking moderate rebel groups. He told a news conference that he hopes by early next month the two sides would be in a position to announce a plan that can make a difference to the lives of people in Syria and to the course of the war. Shortly after Kerry and Lavrov met in Asia, a trilateral meeting between the United States, Russia and the UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, convened in Geneva. The meeting was called by the two co-chairs of the International Syria Support Group, the United States and Russia, to assess the situation in Syria and to discuss how to relaunch the political process and peace talks. Mistura told reporters after meeting U.S. Syria envoy Michel Ratney and Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Gennady Gatilov that the aim is to proceed with a third round of intra-Syrian talks towards the end of August. He voiced hope that Washington and Moscow would make concrete and visible progress because that would improve the situation on the ground and the environment for the peace talks, although such progress is not a precondition for talks. In Syria, meanwhile, efforts are underway to restore parts of the city of Homs, where government forces regained control of rebel-held areas. Once a bustling neighborhood, Wadi As-Sayy Homs now lies in ruins after more than 5 years of conflict in the country reduced entire streets to rubbles. The restoration project is funded by the United Nations Development Programme. The agency's deputy country director, Akiko Suzaki, said despite the conflict, UNDP decided to restore Homs, a move that would revive the city economically and encourage people to return home. Restoration work includes removing the debris and funding small businesses while employing local workers. Mohamed Rajad, who is supervising the project, said people have started returning in small numbers.
There are 20 people who reopened their shops in the covered souk. They started to restore the doors of their shops and reopened them in Naori area and the covered souk. Here in Hamidiya there are many. People are returning and they are encouraging each other.
The situation is different, however, for the people of Aleppo, which has been besieged by Syrian forces. The Syrian has been sending text messages to residents saying it will grant safe passage to those wishing to leave the area. State news agency Sana said the army is calling on residents to push rebel fighters out of the city, saying it would give safe passage and temporary accommodation for anyone wishing to leave the area. The messages also called on armed groups to lay down their weapons. The move came after growing concern for at least 250,000 people who have been trapped in rebel-held areas in eastern Aleppo since heavy fighting closed the last supply route, the Castello Road, early this month. And in Somalia, suicide bombers killed at least 13 people and injured 12 others at a gate of the African Union's main peacekeeping base in the capital in an attack claimed by the militant group Al-Shabaab. The force of the explosion shattered windows at Mogadishu's nearby airport, showered arriving passengers with glass and forced the suspension of flights. Police said the first attacker detonated a car bomb and the second tried to storm the base on foot but was shot and exploded at the gate. Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab are fighting to topple Somalia's Western-backed government. The African Union mission in Somalia condemned the attack, saying it aimed to disrupt and cripple the lives of ordinary Somalis. Turkish special forces backed by helicopters, drones and the Navy hunted a remaining group of commandos thought to have tried to capture or kill President Tayyip Erdogan during a failed coup as the crackdown on suspected plotters widened. More than 1,000 members of the security forces were involved in the manhunt for the 11 rogue soldiers in the hills around the Mediterranean coastal resort of Marmaris, where Erdogan was holidaying on the night of the coup attempts. Erdogan and the government accuse US-backed Muslim cleric Fethullah Gulen of orchestrating the attempted power grab and have launched a crackdown on his suspected followers. More than 60,000 soldiers, police, judges and civil servants have been arrested, suspended or put under investigation. The Religious Affairs Directorate removed another 620 staff, including preachers and instructors in the Quran, bringing to more than 1,100 the number of people it has purged since the July 15 coup attempts. A mass killing in Japan, a country with the lowest crime rates in the world, shocks the nation. A man carrying a knife broke into a facility for the disabled in a small town near Tokyo and killed the 19 patients as they slept and injured at least 25 others. The suspected was a 26-year-old former employee of the facility who gave himself up to police. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe told a gathering in Tokyo that every effort will be made to discover the facts and prevent a recurrence. Here's more.
More information is coming out about the man responsible for killing at least 19 people during a stabbing rampage at a home for the disabled outside Tokyo early Tuesday. Police say the suspect, 26-year-old Satoshi Uematsu, who used to work at the facility, entered the building at around 2:30 in the morning. Local officials describe what happened. This is not a case of a reactionary crime, the prefectural governor said. He went into the dark of night, opened one door at a time, and stabbed people. I just can't believe the cruelty of it. Earlier this year, Uematsu had been hospitalized after expressing a willingness to kill disabled people, but doctors released him after deeming his condition improved. One of his neighbors said he loved kids and was overall cheerful.
Disabled people aren't able to communicate their feelings to others, and some are physically immobile and need someone to take care of them. During his time working at the facility, he saw staff and parents struggle and probably thought that maybe it would be better if children who were disabled did not exist.
Local media say those killed ranged in age from 19 to 70.
Hillary Clinton is set to become the first woman presidential nominee later tonight on the second day of the Democratic National Convention. Democrats hope her nomination will help end rancor between supporters of Clinton and her rival in the primary contest, Bernie Sanders, especially with the vocal display of anti-Clinton feeling among the die-hard Sanders supporters at the opening of the convention yesterday. Sanders was one of the main speakers yesterday alongside Liberal favorite U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren and the First Lady Michelle Obama, who offered their endorsements of Clinton for the November election. Recent opinion polls have given Clinton unfavorable ratings that average 55.4%, according to the Real Clear Politics website. Trump has a similar poor number, with unfavorable ratings averaging 56.9%. The convention's second day today will include a primetime speech by her husband, former President Bill Clinton, and the formalities of nominating her to the White House. The two pilots who made history by circumnavigating the globe in a fuel-free, solar-powered aircraft say their mission has demonstrated that clean and renewable energy is the path of the future. The solar plane, named Solar Impulse 2, returned to Abu Dhabi after an epic 16-month voyage, demonstrating the potential of renewable energy. Over its entire mission, the plane cruised at altitudes of up to 9,000 meters and at an average speed of between 45 and 90 kilometers per hour. It had 16 stopovers along the way, including in Oman, India, Myanmar, China, Japan, the United States, Spain and Egypt. Speaking at a news conference in Abu Dhabi, the Swiss explorers Bertrand Piccard and André Boschberg called for a plan to launch an international council of clean energy technologies to advise governments and bring new energy solutions to the world.
We will have electric airplanes, we'll have unmanned air vehicles that are solar. We try to constitute the International Committee of Clean Technologies, like a World Council for Clean Technologies, because that doesn't exist yet. It's something that should happen, because you need to give to the actors of the clean tech industry the power. They have the energy, but they don't have the power. They're isolated. They don't have the connections. You have to make a worldwide movement that can advise governments, that can advise corporations. Try to be pioneers in your life. Try to implement your dreams. Try to think out of the box, out of the certitudes, out of the habits. There are so many people who are just prisoners of old ways of thinking. And this is why the world has so much difficulty to move forward.
World number one Novak Djokovic is looking forward to playing on his favorite hard court surface at the Roger Cup in Toronto, putting his Wimbledon loss behind him. The 29-year-old, who was aiming to become the first man since Rod Laver in 1969 to win all 4 Grand Slams in a calendar year, suffered a third-round loss to American Sam Querrey at Wimbledon. The 12-times Grand Slam champion could meet Wimbledon finalist and home favorite Milos Raonic in the semi-finals. The head of Russia's Olympic Committee said some Russian athletes were not up to International Olympic Committee doping standards. Earlier, the IOC opted against a blanket ban on Russian athletes for the August Rio Olympic Games after evidence of state-sponsored doping of Russian athletes in the 2014 Sochi Olympics. The IOC passed the baton to the international sports federations to clear individual athletes. Russian President Vladimir Putin will meet Russia's Olympic team tomorrow before they head off to the Games in Rio. And finally, normal summer conditions continue in most regions for the rest of tonight. Tomorrow, temperatures in the mid-30s prevail in hilly areas, while higher temperatures continue in the Badia and Eastern Plains with northwesterly moderate winds. A high of 40 degrees Celsius is forecast in Aqaba for tomorrow, with northerly moderate to brisk winds and slightly high seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here's a recap of our top stories. Jordan condemns the slaying by Daesh terrorists of a priest in a French church. An attack and hostage-taking that left another person injured before the 2 assailants were shot dead by police. The UN Special Envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, tells reporters after a trilateral meeting in Geneva, the aim is to proceed with the 3rd round of intra-Syrian talks towards the end of August. And Hillary Clinton is set to become the first woman presidential nominee on the 2nd day of the Democratic National Convention tonight, which includes a speech by her husband, former President Bill Clinton. And with this, we come to an end. I'm Farah Ajlouni. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.